Hi, my name is Karen Fabian, and I'm the founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and I'm here to just give you a really short overview of some issues that come up in terms of yoga practice when we look at two specific parts of the body and one action that we take. So these three components are hips, shoulders, and back bends. And these hips and shoulders can be a particular focus for a yoga sequence, or of course in just about any general yoga class we're doing things to lengthen the hips, to strengthen the hips, to turn the hips out, to turn the hips in, and pretty much the same thing with the shoulders. But students sometimes have a lot of difficulty with postures that focus on these parts of the body for various reasons, which I'm going to really briefly touch on. And then back bends can be an action that we are offered in a yoga class, but we can struggle with why we can't really get some movement here through this part of the body. So let's just touch on some of these issues from a kind of a high level perspective. So we can think about, there are obviously a lot of muscles in this part of the body, but let's specifically focus on the psoas, which is one of the major muscles that flexes our hip. So if you think about where the psoas is, generally, it starts in the lower back on the lumbar spine, and it wraps around. Actually, it comes through the front. So if you imagine looking inside, it's deep inside the body, but it's on the lumbar spine. So it's starting back here, and it's ending on the top of the thigh bone, on a particular part of the thigh bone itself. So for demonstration purposes, I'll do this, but you have to envision it's actually deep inside the body. So it's kind of like an abdominal muscle. And when it does its job, it lifts the thigh up closer to the body. And if we want to stretch it, we have to take the thigh back. So this is hip flexion, this is hip extension. And so when we take a really common posture in yoga, Warrior One, we're essentially extending one of the hips and flexing the other one. But the tighter this muscle is, in many cases it's going to pitch the person forward. It's just too short to allow them to have this long stance and be upright at the same time. So as teachers, one of the things we can do to help people that are struggling with this issue is have them bring the back foot in a little bit closer. Here I can get more upright, and I can reach the arms up to the sky without being pitched forward. If I want to do something like strengthen my hip flexor, I might do something where both hips are in flexion, or I can take some dynamic movements where I'm moving the thigh up into the chest. This is an action where the muscle is contracting, okay? One of the other parts of the body that can be really tight from just our general mode throughout the day of hunching a lot are the pectoral muscles. And so we're talking about this general region up here, and we can focus on kind of the front of the chest and ending around a portion of the shoulder itself. So for many students, when they come into yoga class, and they're asked to do different shapes where the arms are up in the air, if these muscles are tight, they might end up something like this, okay? So if we want to lengthen these muscles, we have to move more towards the back of the body. We don't want to keep doing the same thing. So sometimes what you might hear in class is interlace your hands behind your back. But if these muscles are tight, you're not going to have a lot of mobility there. So this is why people suggest using, or teachers suggest using a strap. But for many students, they don't get how to use it, why to use it. They think it might, potentially indicate they're a beginner or not super flexible. So there can be a lot of kind of head stuff that gets in the way. But let me show you that when we put the strap in between the hands like this, and we take the hands wider, we immediately get a greater ability to move the shoulders back. And when we move the shoulders back, we can start to contract the shoulder blades closer together, and that strengthens the muscles that essentially do the opposite of what the pecs do. So the rhomboids in this case draw the shoulder blades closer together. At the same time the pecs stretch, pec minor and pec major. When pec minor and pec major contract, the rhomboids lengthen, and you can see the shoulder blades coming apart. So this is a really good, and it's even something good to do throughout the day if you're sitting a lot, hunched over your computer, right? That can be a good counter movement to take to stretch the front of the shoulders. So now let's talk a little bit about back bends. So back bends are things where you'd typically typically, let's talk about back bends from the back versus something where I'd be on my belly. Back bends typically happen on the ground, and if I come down here and I come down to my back, a really basic back bend is bridge. And so this is where I'm lifting up, and you can see how now the hips are in extension, but I don't have a lot of bend in my spine. If I wanted to have bend in my spine, I would look more in a rounded shape. But this part of the back can be really, really stiff because the ribs are there. So let me show you a preliminary posture you can do before you come into a full back bend. And this is a pose called camel pose. So if I come up onto my knees, and I set my knees about hip width apart, and I place my hands on my back, I can start to lift up through my sternum. And as I lift up through my sternum, notice I'm not taking my head back. I don't really want my neck to be more flexible, but I want to get more movement through here. And this is a direction that the body doesn't take a lot, so it can feel really unfamiliar. But if I'm grounded in my legs, on my knees, and if your knees are uncomfortable, you can put a towel there or roll the mat back. And I start to take my sternum, my heart, up, keep the chin tucked, I can start to get some movement through the thoracic spine where it's really stiff. I can even go back to that bind I just showed you before, or I could bring my hands back to my heels, right? I could even use a block and take one arm up to the sky. So these are all preliminary movements that you can take to start to build more flexibility and movement through your thoracic spine, right? There's 12 thoracic vertebrae corresponding with the ribs, really stiff, kind of has to be because the rib cage is there to protect the heart and the lungs. But when we do twisting movements, when we do back bends, we want some mobility there. So just to kind of summarize here, we're talking about hips, shoulders, and back bends, and these are great things to focus on if you're a teacher in terms of building anatomical sequences on these themes. But in order to do that, you need to have a good understanding of anatomy, especially around, obviously, these parts of the body. So I want to highlight for you, I have an online course, which you can get to via my website, barebonesyoga.com, and the course is all about hips, shoulders, and back bends. And it's called Practice It, Learn the Anatomy, Practice It, Teach It. And this online course is $79, but I'm going to give you, my YouTube viewer, a discount of $25, making the course only $54. And all you need to do when you go to the website and purchase the course is use the code YouTube at checkout. And the course will be discounted $25 for you. This online course gives you both text content, images of the muscles, video content. It takes you through specific sequences so you can practice the sequences to start to really embody what you're learning. And then it gives you the sequences in a downloadable PDF. So if you're a teacher, you can print this out and bring it into your classes. So again, all you need to do is visit the website, barebonesyoga.com, go to the online course page, and in the description below, underneath this video, I'm going to include a link directly to the course page, so it's really easy for you to find. Thank you so much for watching, and namaste.